Hello and welcome to Kimboshi Radio, where Nick, we are finally here. A Basho is forthcoming. It's Christmas, right? How you feeling?
I'm excited every time we get to do this, especially before it starts, my favorites start failing or doing extremely well. It's always a fun mystery.
That's true. Before our hearts are shattered. Don't worry, Fuji. We believe in you. Welcome back, buddy. I mean, the worst part is I'm like, do believe in you, but my heart is always broken.
Yeah, I don't always choose the people who do the best, but you know what? They always have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be fine. But first, I mean, let's just come out of the gates and talk about the big question. I think that we got some stories we really want to talk about later, but will Teru fight? He has not necessarily been taking practice fights at the level that a lot of younger, healthier wrestlers are. And a bigger thing is that he and his coach have not made any announcement about whether he's going to do it or not. Whereas for the last tournament, which he did compete in, and we saw some blips where he didn't look completely healthy, but obviously he won the thing. They had announced 2 weeks before the start of the tournament that he was going to fight before that last one, and now we're 3 days.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm really torn on it because like we had talked about a little bit before we started. Oh shoot, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
You're good.
Sorry, okay. So we had talked about before with kind of his newer style. He fought a little bit differently last time, where he was a little bit more stationary, and where if people couldn't move him in that initial part, you have no chance. He just dominates everybody. But like you said, it makes me nervous.
Right. And just it's no fun to watch him come back and not be dominant, and we saw that the last time he won a tournament he looked so good. In fact, his previous comeback, in my opinion, was more impressive than this one. I mean, I think that's not like unique. He went 14-1. He had that weird loss to Meisei, but otherwise was completely dominant in May of 2023. But then he came back immediately. He beat Abi and then lost to Nishikigi and Tobizaru in back-to-back days and then pulled out of the tournament. We don't want to see that again. That's no fun for anyone. It's actually better, I think, if we're only going to have one Yokozuna, if he focuses on his health, and if he needs to sit out again, then such is life, you know? We would rather see him fight, but we want to see the true version of him fight.
Yeah, I'd be honestly at this point, I'd be fine with just like an every other if he needs that
Yeah.
time between.
Yeah. Which I'm gonna pivot a little bit. So still talking about Teru, but there's something interesting with that is that Kirishima is now going to have to try to restart a Yokozuna run, right? Like he got derailed. And similarly to what we were saying with Takakesho during Terunofuji's previous stint sitting out, like if the JSA wants another Yokozuna, like it's kind of easier for Kirishima to get there if Teru doesn't fight. And technically, if I believe by the numbers, like, I mean, the numbers are wishy-washy. Technically, all you need is the Yokozuna committee to nominate you. But if he goes 14-1 and wins this Basho, I'm pretty sure, like 100% sure, like he is going Yokozuna.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
agree. He'd be 13-2 in November, 11-4 last time. If he does 13-14 this time, I think it's a solid shot. But like you said, they think the key there is Terunofuji going to fight? Because I think it's gonna be just like last time if he does, where he's not going to win. He's not going to get it.
right. And even just like it's like if Teru comes back, just the idea that it sucks another win out of the room potentially. Another thing, so like, I mean, do you think Hiroshima is going to get Yokozuna like after this next tournament, after March?
Uh Man, that's hard to say at this point because he has the November win. Do they need back to back? Is that typically how it goes?
Te Technically, but like, I feel like 2 out of 3 is fine. You know, like what the JSA wants to see, like in a perfect world, which just in modern sumo, I don't the odds of a perfect world ever happening again, it's not gonna happen. But you're supposed to win back to back Basho, and then you get promoted. Like the last 3 isn't as much of a factor for Yokozuna as it is for Ozeki. But I mean, he was still contending last Basho until those last 2 days knocked him out of it, but he lost to obviously the 2 contenders. He lost to the 2 guys who were then fighting for the title in the end. And 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 I think that championship matters. So that's me saying I think in the modern era, the way the sumo playing field is kind of leveled. I think that two in the last three can be just as important as the back to back because back to back's so hard.
I do I do think that they're with Terunofuji being active, I think they will hold him maybe to a higher standard since they don't need the Yokozuna right now. So I
Yeah.
do think that actually plays maybe against Kirishima.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's super logical. Yeah.
But yeah, I
So,
think if I think if he wins this one, he's got a really good shot.
yeah, like, oh man. Yeah. Cause like 14 wins, it's a done deal. I guess it's like if he wins another Basho with 13 wins, tying his career high, he's never done better than that. Like, will they pull the trigger? You know what? I'm gonna my opinion, which I think other people I think no. Like I think 13 and a Yusho and they roadblock him, 14 and a Yusho and they can't deny him. And I'm saying that just based on what we saw with Takakeisho, but who knows? Like the question is how thirsty are the JSA? How bad do they want it?
Yeah, and oh man, speaking of as big a bummer it is to talk about this one, but do you think Takakeisha is going to fight this time? His
Dude, I
neck
know.
injury sounds really bad.
I hate this. Like, yes, I think he's going to fight, but he's obviously not healthy, but like he has to fight. But like it's frustrating because yeah, I'm with you. Like, I is this going to be another one where Takakeisha comes back and gets 8 wins and then has to pull out because of injuries or goes 8-7? You know what I mean? Like, I hate
I,
watching this because I love seeing him dominate.
I think at this point, 8 wins is probably the best you can hope for. It didn't sound good last time, but God, I really don't want to see him get demoted. Like he's been so successful over his career. Like I just don't want to see it like just completely flame out like this.
I know. And like it's so interesting cuz that is what happens in sports, you know? Like a guy gets an injury and then it's hard to come back. So it's not like we're in unprecedented territory here. It's just that we hate it.
Yeah, I mean, especially in sumo, where it's to the point where you're basically crippled. Is like they're like, okay, now you can retire.
Oh,
Especially at
totally.
him with him.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, and I'll just like touch back. Like we did the ACL episode with Phil and had some really good comments from some folks. And like one dude who was a veteran commented and mentioned how like he has had knee surgeries, but like you know it obviously didn't help that he carried these like I don't even know how heavy, how much gear. I mean, you had some time in the garden stuff, but like if 10 kilograms of gear on your back, like that's not good for your knees. Just marching.
No, when you're just doing miles and miles, you probably have 100 pounds. It's yeah,
Good
not great.
night. Yeah, constantly, yeah, and stuff like that, so that wear and tear that just hits you from Jump Street, and then however you can move on from there. Whee!
But and then on the
Besides
flip side,
yeah,
though, the nice part is then we still have a super healthy Coacha Aaka and Hishoryu.
mhm,
Hishoryu, I mean, he'll do his thing. He'll get
mhm,
probably 8 to 10. It'll be good.
yeah.
I'm curious to see now with the pressure on for Coach Inawaka to see if he continues doing really well or if he kind of peters out a little bit. If the last two with both Ashoryu and Kirishima, they're I think their first Ozeki tournaments were a little rocky. Now Kirishima obviously was injured, but
No, it's a good point, and something that someone mentioned to me once. I don't remember what video, or I would try to highlight them, but it was a long time ago, like maybe even year and a half ago. Um, but just there are a ton more duties and expectations for Ozeki. Like they do a lot of press, and they have to go to a lot of events, and so that's why traditionally there's this initial Ozeki slump. You come back and because like your concentration is taken away from your training. Same thing for when guys are on their first Komusubi run. Like all of a sudden you're doing all these different interviews, having to talk to different people, go to dinners and entertain for like the sponsors who support your stable because that stuff's important. But when you've never done it before, it's like a huge mental drain. And then just like literally you have less time in the dojo at your Heya training and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's a big worry. Will this slump come? Because we already know he's been fighting the top guys for a long time because he really did, I think, get the time to earn it in terms of fighting other Sanyaku wrestlers. He got a good chunk of time at Komusubi, got a good chunk of time at Sekiwake, and now he's into Ozeki and has contended for a title. But like, it matters that it was to the Yokozuna, so like that's a factor as well. But like, yeah, when the pressure was truly on at the very end of that Basho, Teru got it done and took out Koto.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if he'll have a bit of an advantage because like since his dad would have gone through something fairly similar, if
That's
he's
true.
gotten like a little bit of prep work ahead of time, so he kind of knew maybe more.
Yeah. I mean, mm, yeah, that's true. Like, if they can shepherd him through it, we would love that. Yeah, because he's got the family reputation in these Sanyaku ranks and stuff like that. So, I mean, talent wise, he's definitely a contender. What do you think? So we talked about it a little bit. I mean, Hoshoryu, I'm still waiting for the breakup. It's so weird. His breakout performance was the tournament that he won his Yusho. And so I guess I can't say that. I'm not waiting for a breakout performance. What I'm waiting for is consistency. And he was very good last tournament. Sucks that he had to pull out, but it was fine because he contended the whole time. And then, like, it was the right decision, I guess, is what I mean. But then that injury worries me. I do think that at this point in his career, we've talked about when he was at Sekiwake, how he was kind of a grinder, and that frustrated us with 8 and 9 win tournaments instead of 10 win tournaments. Um, and I think with Ozeki's, but personally, anything less than even an 11 win tournament, and I'm kind of like, hmm. Um, so Hoshoryu here, like, I think my expectation is 10-11 every time, but I want him to have a breakout again. But really, what we're looking for is that consistency. So maybe 3 11s is more important. I don't know. But how do you feel about these four Ozeki in general? Like, are you feeling confident? Do the injuries with Hoshoryu and Takakeisho worry you more? Does the expectations, the added expectations on Kota Nowaka worry you? What are you thinking?
So I think overall I'm very positive on the current Ozeki group. The only one that really worries me is Takakeisho because simply like, can he physically fight at this point? I do agree with you though that with Hoshoryu, I think when he was grinding out, 8 and 7s, 9 and 6s, that kind of 10, 11 wins is that for the
Hmm.
Ozeki. That's the comparable
Yeah.
where it's fine, but I do want to see him kind of pop off again. Like it would be nice to see. Not that he's doing bad again. He's still holding that off. 10, 11
Yeah.
wins for an Ozeki. It's still good, but I don't know. It's
It's
not. It's just not what you expected.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because so first of all, like we said before, we absolutely love the comments because it really brings different perspectives. And man, the last episode in response to the Hakuho stuff had so many good comments. But again, I'm gonna pull back one from the episode before that just because it seems kind of relevant here. But there was a guy who posted and mentioned that in their sumo club, they train primarily Oshidashi, which is like what you hear, right? That most guys are pusher thrusters, especially young and coming up and things like that. But he made the point that explicitly throws are avoided because that torque is more likely to cause injury, which is interesting because, like, that's what happened to Wakataka Kage. That's what sometimes seems to happen to Hoshoryu. Again, Hoshoryu we've talked about because he comes from Mongolian bulk, which is really a lot of grappling and throwing, but those dudes don't wear 500 pounds on their shoulders. Those dudes are more like, your jacked cut MMA fighters. Not exclusively, but that's what you see a lot there. So different body types that may make that less prevalent. But with Hoshoryu, I do feel like he has been adding the weight and changing his style and trying to build up his portfolio of this more solid, consistent stuff where the throws become less of something he relies on and more something he has in his toolkit. And so, yeah, I'm with you that what I'm hoping for is that he gets to the point where this sumo that is not necessarily what allowed his meteoric rise at this young age, that's the throws and the exciting stuff, which allowed that. But where he gets that stuff so consistent that he can lock in his 10 and 11 wins and only needs to use the throws to bump that up to two more, like to get to the 12s and 13s and be consistently contending.
I like that perspective too, because then that would show if that's what's going on too, is it's showing that he's fighting for longevity too, not just like be
Yes.
flashy now, which will extend his career significantly.
So true, because he's so young, but we've just watched this with Takakeisho, the super young guy coming up, but now he's 27 going on 47. It's yeah, I'm totally with you. Um, speaking, man, so many things to mention there, but like speaking of young guys, like his youth, Takakeisho's youth, these sort of young guns, like, what do you think? There's a few that I've got in mind that are ranked like right next to each other. So this pair of Atamifuji, like, can he bounce back? But Oho, can he keep this running? These guys who've kind of risen up there. What do you think about these two guys?
So, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. Oho historically has not held on to these high runs.
Right. We
Um,
literally just talked about how we want consistency from Hoshoryu. We've seen similar things from Oho. Like he does these great things, and then a couple tournaments that are just like meh.
yeah, like it looks like last May he went 11-4, then he went 6-9, 5-10, 8-7. So maybe I would like to see him at least break even on this one would be nice.
Hmm.
Um, Atamifuji, oh man, he's in such a tough spot though. Like the people above him are so good that I don't know. I don't. It's really tough to see if he'll be able to beat a whole lot of them consistently because like the talent above him is just it's on another level right now.
I know it's the same thing we always talk about with these guys and jetpacks and stuff like that. Is like, okay, how much of your previous performances was reliant upon sort of padded wins?
Yeah, and I'm looking at him, and he beat Tobizaru, he beat Abi before. Like he's still like, he's beaten. You know, he beat Gonoyama. So he's beaten some of them and Daisho, but I don't know. It's a tough crowd. Like it's no fault
Yeah,
of his. Like he's still great, but he's
I
gonna have
know
to go right up against them just like he did the last time. He'll maybe get a little bit
exactly.
more of a break, but
Yeah, no, this is exactly what we're always talking about with these guys is like he can beat them. That's not the question. That's not the problem. It's can he beat them every friggin' day for 2 weeks? Um, Same thing, because the other two guys I wanted to talk about are Onosato and Gonoyama. Because again, the same way that Atamifuji needs to bounce back, Gonoyama needs to bounce back after a rough performance. The same way Oho put forward a good one, but we're not sure if he can keep it running. Onosato put a good one in, but it was really low and stuff like that. So it's that same thing. We've seen Kotonoaka now go to Ozeki because he proved over the course of a year that he can consistently beat Ozeki's, Sekiwake's, Komosubis, these guys who were up there. So that puts him in that conversation. Onosato, again, all the slack in the world for this guy right now. First ever tournament in Makuuchi. He's barely been pro. He hasn't been pro for a year. He's barely been pro for a handful of tournaments here. So he's going to need some more stabs at it to kind of develop his technique, but like he did not get it done in the last Basho. So it's this thing again, like I just, you're waiting to see who they become. And I think there's these inflection points that we're seeing less so with Onosato because again, he's so early, but Gonoyama, maybe inflection point time. I don't know.
yeah. I think that's a really good point too. Like when you talk about like you having to fight these guys constantly and win against them constantly. It's kind of like with Abi. He's my favorite, but he does not consistently win against the Sanyaku, which is why
Mhm.
he, I think, currently is peaked at Komusubi.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Abi's a great example because again, I say this all the time. You and I talk about grades. Like we grade where a guy is, and so on some level we disregard where they're ranked in the Bonsuke at any given tournament because that's more of a power rankings thing. That's how have you been lately. But when we talk about grades, we're talking about what is the caliber of this wrestler, all things. If we were going to put them into a simulator, Abi Sekiwake grade. He his technique, his ability, if you are fighting him, you need to be prepared to challenge a Sekiwake. However, he's not always there, like you're saying. So that's that question.
Yeah, which is why, just to kind of flashback before, that's why Hoshoryu, where we're like, oh man, he's only getting 10 wins, 11 wins. We're essentially, like you said, we're grading him on a whole different scale than everybody below him.
Totally.
Where
Yes,
everybody
exactly.
he's fighting is the best all the time.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. Like, if the right, like this is just obviously tongue in cheek, but like if Hoshoryu for some reason were fighting in Jurio, like he would magically find some way to come up with 16 wins in 15 matches. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. What about like another one of these guys? So if we're talking about this like different grades and injuries and coming back, so like Asen Oyama. We talked about in the Bonsuke episode, he is at the very top of the Maegashira's, which is a great place to be. It is this moment to really get to fight all the big guns, and he's just a hair's breadth away from getting back into Sanyaku. But do you think he, because of his injuries as well, is he more likely to get sort of the 8 and 7 slide into Komosubi and continue the rise up? Or do you think he's going to kick on? Like he has lots of experience fighting lots of these guys at the top. Less so for the younger ones like Hoshoryu and stuff like that. But guys like Daisho, he's fought a lot. If Teru fights, he's fought a lot. He's fought Takakeisho a lot. So, it's like when we talk about Takayasu, whenever he gets up here, is there's no fear. He knows these guys.
But yeah, it's just like with Takayasu, it's can he do it once he's up here? That's a good. Oh man, I know Asen Oyama can do it, but like you said, it's kind of like, is that injury gonna pull him back? Like he lost 3 days last time to it, and that really killed him.
I know. Frankly, I think 9 wins, and I don't think it's because he goes 9-6. I think it's because he's much more likely to come up with another 9-3-3.
Yep, I agree. And then I would guess he'll be. I think he would be Komusubi if he can pull off even the 9 wins. He'll slide up into Komusubi for sure.
Oh yeah. I think maybe even 8 wins. Not like I don't know that our current Komatsubis are going to hold serve. And again, just to reiterate, it's not because we don't really like Nishikigi and Abi. It's because it's really hard for those guys when they have a locked in at least like 6 matches, but maybe like when you know that 7 of your matches are Terunofuji, Kirishima, Hoshoryu, Takakeisho, Kotonowaka, Daisho, Wakamoto, Haru, like it is incredibly believable to think that, yeah, Abi would lose to all 7 of those guys. Okay, well, that's 7 wins. He needs to win literally every other match to finish Kachikoshi.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, Abi's my favorite, but still, it's flip a coin on whether or not he's gonna be able to
Exactly.
pull it off.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes he does. And then we're just like riding this weird electric roller coaster, but sometimes he doesn't. So, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out. The health of those guys matters too. If Takakeisho's unhealthy and Teru pulls out, whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Gives him 2 more wins. Same with Nishikigi. Nishikigi doesn't have as much experience at this high. But I don't know. He's been really turning it on lately.
Yeah, and I liked some quotes from him. I mean, the guy very determined, obviously, and he says, "I'd really like to get my first winning record in Sanyaku, especially because this time I'm healthy." Because again, remember he had that calf tear like 2 or 3 days before the Basho last time. That was devastating. Um, but if he thinks he's healthy, I'm pretty stoked because we've talked all the time. It's so interesting. Abi is this like glass cannon, all offense that can really go wrong for him. And Nishikigi's kind of the exact opposite. He's just a mountain of a man, very solid. So I'm like, if you're healthy, his solid style of like Ichinojo back in the day. If he can just be solid, he can keep himself in any match.
Yeah, I think for him, a success here would be, yeah, like just an 8-7. 8-7
Yeah,
at Komusubi after the injuries and having to fight back up would be a huge success.
yeah, yeah. And and he can do that. I don't know. We'll find
I think
out,
he
but like
can.
yeah. Um, Now I do want to do before we get to our actual like picks for surprises and who we think's actually going to win the Basho and things like that. I want to go down the bond scale a little bit and maybe talk about lower divisions and what we think, but specifically, what are you thinking for Jurio right now? Especially because I'm gonna jump ahead, maybe skip ahead a little bit because I think we're both on the same page that we think this should be Wakataka Kage winning Jurio, right?
Yes. I think with his level of experience and having fought so long at Sekiwake, I think he beats Hakuoho, who, even despite how good he is, I just don't think that's an advantage you can just get over very easily, even off of just raw talent.
Sure.
So I would give it to those two being the top.
Definitely same here. And then question though, so this is going to be the first time for both of them that their injuries are tested in a 15-day tournament. And if Waka does it like what do you think the terminus of this story is for Waka? Like will he get back to Sanyaku? Will he get back well, let's say this. Will he get back to Sanyaku? Will he get back to consistently being a Sekiwake? Will he get back to challenging for an Ozeki? Like, can he still hang in those top tiers?
So this is where we get this is definitely where our opinions I think break from majority of the people who listen or even the internet in general. In that I think Wakataka Kage could get back up to Sanyaku, but I don't think he can hang at Sekiwake with the people that are up there right now.
Yeah, I know.
They're
I just
so good. And before, when the Sanyaku, when he was up there, it was pretty weak, and he was still consistently hitting like 8, 9 wins.
Yeah. He was grinding like Hoshoryu. They were super even parallels until Waka broke out and got his Yusho, you know?
Yeah, and then Hoshoryu, he kept it up though. He kept going up to 10. He got, I don't know, man. I just don't think he can do it. I don't think he's Ozeki for sure with the four they have right now. Well,
Yeah.
3.5 they have that right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Otaka
man,
Keisho.
I don't even know if he could go get Sekawake right now. His brother is, it's which is
No.
funny because you look at Wakamoto Haru and you're like, oh, he deserves to be up there. He's so much better than everybody below him. But then you look at
Yeah.
Wakataka Kage, and I don't know. I have questions on that one.
And again, going back to that previous commenter, like Wakamoto Haru, very much a very violent, very north-south style. Wakataka Kage, very good north-south, very good with that inside grip, but as like Hoshoryu in the past, relied a lot on what I love. I think what sumo internet world loves is these really exciting throws and stuff like that. But those probably, if we're trying to be smart, have to get downplayed in the repertoire if he's not gonna re-injure the ACL.
Yep, no, I agree. And that's just like we've seen with others. Like when you try to switch, when you've been doing really successful, it's very hard.
Mm,
So I'd love to see him get up there, but I think, I don't know. I'd say maybe upper Megashira is Takomusubi for him.
right,
And I'd
right.
love to be proven wrong, but I think that's just where my mind is right now.
Yeah. Okay, so then just the rest of Jurio, I think we both kind of expect don't get me wrong, there are many good fighters in Jurio and everyone should watch it if they get the chance. But really, I think we're both expecting this to be a Hakuoho versus Wakataka Kage showdown in Jurio, maybe sucking a lot of the oxygen out of the room. Makushita should be really exciting as well, but like some of that depends on can Onokatsu take a step up because he's still been so raw. He's like 24, 25, but came to sumo so late. Can Kaio turn this around? Um, and Ten Shoho, is he healthy now and stuff like that? Those are three guys that are up at the top of Makushita. And I really think one of those three is going to win Makushita, but it depends on health. You know, like, sure, some young guy like Satoru Fuji could come out of the gates blazing from Makushita 7. I don't know, but those are the guys I'm really looking for. And then, of course, the division that everyone is most interested this particular time, Sandanme, is the big money tournament because our Lord and Savior, Aonishiki, the reborn ghost of the not deceased Tochinoshin, our Ukrainian excitement factor, he's down there at Sandanme 18. Um, and I think we're both just really excited. Like this is the test, you know. Now he's fighting there's some real fighters down there that are also fighting to get into these paid ranks and stuff. So it'll be super exciting. Um, I would have more to say about Jonokuchi and Jonidan if I knew more, but there's such a crapshoot because you get so many young guys entering the ranks that sometimes mix the whole things up. So I don't really have a prediction down there. Um, but as much as we are freight train, hype train folks. I really do think Aonishiki it would be my pick for Sandan Mei based on his past performances. Other than those then, so that's just like a quick blitz through the lower divisions. Um who do you think is either well, give me one of each of these maybe unless they're the same person, but like who's your dark horse contender to win Makuuchi the top division, like some outsider to come in like we've seen in the past when Hakuoho was challenging from the low Maigashiras, when Atamifuji did the same, when Onosato did the same, those kind of things. Who's your dark horse, or who's your surprise pick for a really good performance, which sometimes can be like when a better like back in the day when Hokuto Fuji falls to like Maigashira 13, and you're like, oh, this is 12 wins.
So that's actually exactly what I was going to point out, and I need him to prove me right. But
Yeah.
Shodai at Megashira
Yeah.
10 should go almost perfect until the very end.
I love that. That would be so exciting, especially because there's so many interesting guys in his range. Like these guys of like, again, we talk about inflection points. Like, okay, where are you guys at right now in your career? For instance, Onosho and Takayasu at 8. Both guys have been getting frustrated by injuries lately. Hokuto Fuji at 9, who's been contending for Basho, but again, always a crapshoot. Koto Shoho, like, okay, are you kicking on or are you going to turn back into the treading water guy you were before? Mitakeyumi, another former Ozeki, staring directly across him, like, so interesting, that whole pile of dudes.
And I do not mean this in a disrespectful way, but he's basically fighting the almost the lesser versions of everybody he's had to fight at the top. And he's if he can
Mhm.
come out on top there as he has, there's no reason for him to be losing any or more than like one of these matches.
I love it. I think I'd be really excited, and the sumo world would love it because he's the Lord of Chaos. It's what they all want.
He is also one of my favorites, which is why people look at me
Yes.
weird when I say like, yeah, my favorites are Abi and Shodai. People are like, what? Why?
Just like, well, you're drunk. It's fine. I mean, I guess.
They're
I
like, it's okay to be wrong.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's who I'm putting at for my surprise, like shine from the bottom.
I love it. Yeah. Me, I'm a junkie for these low rank wrestlers. So on one level it's kind of predictable, but like Takeru Fuji, just think he's gonna catch a lot of these guys by surprise down there. He's already proven because they've been bouncing around in Jurio. Like I think he can take out Roga and Dayamami. I love Myogiru so much, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him run off a bunch of wins at 15. But like him and Endo, I think they could maybe get caught off guard, but the question is, can they use their KG veteran skills to throw Takeru Fuji off? But I'm looking for him to be the next installment of these young guys rising up from these low spots to challenge at the end of the day. But other than that, like, and this is not intended as an insult to Atamifuji, Oho, Gonoyama, Onosato, who we talked about before. I just think that where those guys are now, well, our Sonyaku's so good. We are so just like we all need to be thankful that this Sanyaku is so good because we saw it in the past. We talked about the frustrations of the like Takanosho at Sekiwake, Mitakeyumi at Ozeki, Shodai at Ozeki. Like it was really frustrating when the top guys were not performing like it. Well, now they are, and it's awesome, but it makes it really hard for those other guys, and maybe easier for someone like Takeru Fuji or last tournament Onosato or the tournament before that Atamifuji or the tournament before that Hakawoho for someone who's really low ranked to become the dark horse because they get sort of those wins against lower wrestlers, I mean, legitimately lower skill. We talk all the time, like, dude, if you're Magashira 15, you're still like one of the best sumo wrestlers in the world. You're just not one of the best in your division.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of like even as good as the Atamifuji Onosato as they are, they're still ramming into just an absolute wall of talent, which I honestly didn't think about, but that does give the bottom, like, if you're good, a good chance to pop up.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking is like we'll have two of these either Ozeki or Yokozuna contenders in there, or maybe one of the Sekiwakes is in it late and stuff like that. But then there will be this one guy who's like 10-1 going into day 12 and is down there somewhere in the Maegashira teens. And sometimes they're gonna get blasted 3 times in a row. But sometimes they'll keep it going?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, it just turns into a bit of a murder fest, but it's
Yeah.
good experience either way.
Yeah, I agree. How about, I mean, we can skip this question if we want. We hate being negative or whatever, but is there anyone who you think is in for a surprise rough ride?
A surprise rough ride?
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. Fair. That's a good point. Yeah. Like some of these guys, you might just be like, no, he's going to have a rush. I'll give you mine just to start with. I've really enjoyed the Tsurugisho rise up, but with his knee still not healthy yet, and now him all the way up at Maegashira's 6, where he's going to have to fight probably at least 2 or 3 matches against Sanyaku's up there. I think this is where that is finally broken. I think a 6 and 9 is possible for Tsurugisho.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm just looking. I don't want to say it, but Takanosho. I just
Ah,
don't have a
no,
good
the
feeling about
smile.
it.
I know the last time this happened, it didn't go well for us.
May say he's wildly unpredictable. Who knows? I won't put a label on that one, but it's like Takanosho. I'm like, ooh, historically it has
Yeah.
not gone well.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I think that's a wise pick for the question I asked. But let's just sit here and keep hoping that because he did finally get the knee surgery, this is the true moment of truth for Takanosho. Can the smile continue? But now the big question, and this is on one level it's impossible because we don't know if Terunofuji is going to fight. So I guess I need to preface this like the final question is who is your pick to win this Basho? But it probably has to start with is Teru fighting?
If Teru's fighting, and stays in, it's him for sure. Nobody can
Hmm.
contend with him, as we've seen
Hmm.
repeatedly.
Hmm.
Um, I'm I want to say Kirishima. Like you said, Coach Nawaka just has the
Same.
disadvantage of just being a brand new Ozeki. Hoshoryu historically hasn't quite been up there for that, but I would give it Kirishima. maybe a Coacha Aaka, depending on kind of how he handles the transition.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we've seen it so many times so recently, that idea of all those additional expectations for a new Ozeki, I think mentally that really drains a guy. I'm picking Kirishima. He's been crushing dudes in training, and you know what? I'm picking Kirishima even if Terunofuji comes back, because I don't know. I would expect, like, Kirishima's a smart enough guy to watch tape. Think he watched Terunofuji and Tobizaru's fight. I think he knows that if you go for those knees, you can really do something against Teru. I think I think Kirishima's gonna get it. What I don't know is if he's gonna get it at 13 wins or at 14. Like, if he's gonna have the Yokozuna performance or not.
No, that's a really good point. I, yeah, I I agree with you.
And so, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think both of us want Teru to come back, but we don't know. Either way, it's going to be an exciting Basho. Tons of exciting stories. I hope that every single one of these guys who we've been down on proves us wrong. But listeners, who's your pick and why to win this Basho? Because, again, the calculus gets complicated with the injuries. So we would love to hear who you think and see what things we missed out on. But other than that, Nick, thanks for recording with me, and thanks for listening, everybody.